to the Vert vlog, episode number 3. Today we're talking about preserving the craft with POP-VAC concentrate and flower jars. In my hands I've got the OG POP-VAC. This is a 4 ml jar. If you're not familiar with this jar, it's got a snappy user interface, a vacuum seal built into the lid in order to preserve the terpenes and ultimately the craft. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the POP-VAC jar. First came across the POP-VAC containers in late 22, if not early 2023. Saw them on the traditional market. That's where ultimately they first landed. The founders rolled out the containers, I think maybe at the Heady Hash session back in, I guess that would have been early 2023. And some of your OG hash makers that are up there who've been making solvents for many years saw the containers, started packaging them up, as things often do. It spread like a little bit of a wildfire in the traditional market. It wasn't long before I saw them here in Colorado. Ultimately kept my eye on the technology as somebody who's been supplying packaging to the industry for the last almost decade. It'll be 10 years in 2025. And I first saw the POP-VAC containers entering the legal market around August 2023 with a brand out here in Colorado by the name of Mighty Melts. It wasn't long after that a few other brands started to adopt the technology. I also saw brands in Cali, in Missouri, in Massachusetts, on the rec side as well, that were adopting the technology. Ultimately, we had been keeping our eye on it since pretty early in its infancy stage, and as I saw it start to enter the legal market, decided that this is something that I want to get ahead of in terms of the trend. That ultimately I feel Vert, it aligns very well with our value proposition at Vert, the community that we're looking to serve, as initially we have been building out our online platform to cater to the concentrate sector with a hyper focus on solventless production, given its nature of small batch, limited run, drop culture. And we reached out to the team. Fortunately, had a friend of a friend who previously was at 710, and through them was able to make a connection with the founders of the technology and start to build a relationship. I guess it was probably October, November of 2023 when we brought in our first shipment. Just started to look at what was going to be required from a labeling standpoint. As you can see, they've got the hip full wraps built to them. They also have the donut lid labels where the circle is exposed. Right now I've just got the full coverage on me here. You got clear jars, black lids. They also have black jars, black lids. So let's talk about why am I excited about this product? Ultimately, a big part of what we're doing at Vert is helping craft elevate and accelerate. And this is a container that does exactly that. At least it's been designed to do just that, with the focus on closing off the container to retain terpenes, to retain the production through the consumption. Meaning when it's first produced to when a consumer receives it and consumes it, maintaining that experience and the craft ultimately that so many passionate people are out there putting into their work. The lid, as you can see here, has proprietary technology built into it. In essence, this disc in here creates a funnel over the jar to completely close off the environment. And where this was born out of, to my understanding, is if you're familiar with 710 Labs, 710 has traditionally put a shield over their jar. Well, that shield was developed for them, and along the way, the realization that, hey, maybe there's a more effective way to do this, less componentry as relates to touch points for packaging, And the idea was born to create a locking mechanism that ultimately resulted in doing the exact same thing, which is preserving the terpenes in the product inside the container. What's neat is, as I just mentioned, the folks that engineered and developed the POP-VAC container, it's not their first rodeo in cannabis. They've developed multiple products. They've taken their expertise and experience and packaged it up into their first branded product, which is the POP-VAC containers. Don't have a ton of samples right now, so you're going to see that we've got a white lid on a black jar, but just to give you an idea of what's coming, we've got, you can hear that beautiful pop. These are 1/8 jars. They're going to come black jar, black lid, clear viewing window, as well as black on black and white on white, no viewing windows. And then these jars will also be available in 1/4 ounces, 1/2 ounces, full ounces. For the concentrates, this 4 ml can hold, I think, upwards of 3+ grams. There's going to be a 2 ml jar that's going to be suggested for 1 gram of concentrate, and there's also going to be a 9 ml jar. And then you're going to have pre-roll POP-VAC packaging options as well, singles, multi-packs. Really interested to see how those are adopted, given that this is definitely a premium package at a premium price point. But with that being said, if you're selling a premium product and consumer perception is critical to sell through and maybe first time purchases, putting that product in a premium package that it's in the premium package that it deserves is important, not just from a consumer perception standpoint, but ultimately a product freshness standpoint. If I'm coming in and buying something for a premium, I want to get the best product I possibly can get, which ultimately means you need to put it in the best package you can find to deliver that end-to-end experience. So what are we doing with POP-VACs? Ultimately, as I just spoke to craft and craft production, it's about empowering the everyday operator with rapid and hyper customization of premium containers. So with Vert, you can buy your POP-VAC container. We stock it in white on white, clear glass with black lid, black on black, as I mentioned. We also do the label printing and label application if you want the lids to come already applied, and you can just apply your wrap label. We offer that as well. We are also providing boxes, and the beauty of our platform is that you can get something like this as low as 100 units. So at 100 units, you're $1.50 on the container. On labels, you're probably somewhere around $1.50 a set. So you're $2.50 to $3 a unit, but you can now drop as small as 100 units on the market, test the market, get feedback, iterate, or you can go out and play in that drop game and command a price premium where ultimately you can afford to spend more on your packaging because you're able to sell it at a higher price. So jar, label, box, all single source supply chain with Vert, turned in 11 business days or less. Ultimately, you don't need to have a huge budget to create big brand presence on shelf anymore. And that's what the democratization of packaging is doing for brands of all sizes, which is ultimately why Vert exists. It's to empower everybody with an equal opportunity to go out and compete. So one of the things that I've always said is that cannabis has evolved with what's been available to it. In the early days, how product was getting packaged was very much in stock packaging, lack of customization, because that's what the supply chain offered at the time. I remember the early days of child-resistant bags. They were these huge locks on bags, and then innovative producers started to build technology and build an offering around the market. When you look at concentrates, there's been minimal innovation in the category. We saw Calyx Containers bring their jars to market in, I guess it was probably 2017-ish era. That was really what I would consider the first innovative container that I had seen in concentrates. Maybe others will tell me different, but the square container, they had developed a little bit with the lid technology. Don't know their product intimately, This is the first time I'm seeing a container that's been developed specifically around preservation of cannabis concentrates, which is one of the things that gets me super excited. And it's not just for cannabis concentrates, as I mentioned, it's also for flower too. You know, when you open up this vacuum seal and you can see the pop. You can see the pop here. The aroma that's going to hit you in the face with that vacuum is just next level. So when you think about your consumer picking up that small batch flower, the excitement behind it that you're building on that drop, and them opening up this jar that hits them with a nose like no other, it's going to create a consumer experience that ultimately people are going to keep coming back for. So talk about limited drops, collabs, small batch. Ultimately, this all rolls up into something that at Vert we call, well, we didn't name it, but it's what we've been focused on for a while, which is drop culture and bridging that gap between drop culture and cannabis. The traditional market has really been the leader of drop culture in cannabis. That's where, you know, folks are on Instagram, they're in their social channels promoting a product before it ever hits market. And in many cases, that product could be selling out before it hits market. You know, the idea around Vert was, well, you know, you see that successful brands like Supreme or Nike have been able to operate and execute on a drop strategy for a very long time. In the case of Supreme, it's really, you know, the ethos of their brand. Well, that same desire has existed in the traditional market for cannabis, but on the legal side of cannabis, it's been a major struggle to execute on that, and that's because of the supply chain complexity. So what ultimately fed, you know, the Vert concept back, geez, you know, this is probably, I don't know how long ago, but it's more than a couple of years at this point, was how can we build a supply chain partner to cannabis operators that ultimately bridges that gap and enables them to move just like the traditional market, just like a Nike or a Supreme. And what that resulted in was low minimums, or in some cases no minimums, low out-of-pocket expense, quick to market. Come up with an idea, rapidly execute, get product to shelf at a speed that you simply cannot find. That was the initial thesis behind Vert. It just so happened that the same process, tools, and flow necessary to execute that bring equal and the same value to a startup brand, to a medium-sized brand who might be launching a new SKU. These are shared challenges, not exclusive to bridging the gap between drop culture and cannabis. Ultimately, why are we bridging that gap? The consumer wants small batch. They want new experiences. They want to see a collaboration happening between two operators that they're passionate fans of, and that they can go get a product that just so happens to have the love and craft from two operators that they're into. You know, the exclusivity, the uniqueness. Again, no different than why are they going up and picking out that limited drop Nike SB. So traditional market's been operating that way. They've been leading that way. Ultimately, for the legal market to continue to move users off the traditional market into the legal market, they have to look, move, and feel just like the traditional market. Vert's here to enable that. Talk about collaboration. It's a big focal point for Vert, and really, you know, our core is collaboration. It's collaborative relationships, collaborative partnerships. You know, when I look at an equation, I see 1 + 1 = 3. I get really excited and want to understand how can we dive into this more? How can we create value ultimately for the collaborators as well as the end consumer? It has to start with the end consumer, but if everybody can win, then this is going to be a great recipe and something that ultimately should be sustainable. So back to POP-VAC and what we're doing. As I mentioned it earlier, come online, grab a premium container for your premium product, rapidly create your brand look and feel for this new SKU, printed packaging out the door in 11 business days or less, minimums as low as 100 pieces, outmaneuver the market, outgame the market, take your brand to new levels, get eyeballs on it, utilize drop culture to create buzz, noise, and ultimately a raving fan base. And as I was talking with an operator yesterday who's small batch solventless, that really is focused on collaborations, as they are not single source at this point in time. Their menu's selling out before they even drop products. Drop as in market. So they drop a menu, they're sold out. There's something here, right? This isn't just beginner's luck with collabs. If you're doing something well and you build a fan base and you keep the quantities at a scale that ultimately aligns with the demand, not too much supply where there isn't that alignment, you're going to find that you can command a premium price point. You can stay at that top tier, and ultimately the consumer is willing to pay up for a new experience. You do the same drop twice, well, maybe if it's spread out, they'll come back and buy it again, but not week after week, right? You got to create scarcity, and that's ultimately what's done within the drop culture. Thanks for tuning in today. Look forward to catching you on the next Vert vlog. We'll talk to you soon.